reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network.
I'm talking to Jon Landers, the guy responsible for many wasted hours in my life because he's the executive producer of EVE Online. He's here to talk to us about the newest expansion, the 19th free expansion to EVE Online. Can you tell us what's the expansion called and what it's all about?
Yeah, sure. It's EVE Online Odyssey. Like you said, 19th free expansion, taking us into our second decade as a game. So EVE turns 10 on May 6th of this year. We've been growing for 10 years, and and really Odyssey takes us forward into that new decade. It's about, like the name suggests, it's about a journey. It's about this kind of, it's about space has a huge amount in it in EVE, but a lot of that is kind of is hard to find. There's a huge amount to explore, to discover that sort of that sense of wonder.
How does it? No, because you had the wormhole exploration. Can you tell us something about the mechanics of exploring and the sense of wonder? What's going to happen to the player?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's actually a huge amount of content already in the game, but we're also going to be adding a load of new exploration content that people will be able to play. They'll be able to actually interact, and we'll be putting like kind of mini games in to sort of add to that sense of what's happening. Sort of almost a race against time. We're also adding new ways to actually find that content. So EVE's always been quite a hard game to sort of navigate your way through. And part of our longer-term vision is to really change EVE into being a game where the information is presented to you in a more contextual way, in a much easier way to understand, so that you still have a very hard and difficult game to play, but it's not difficult to understand. It kind of drags you in rather than just being, you need a degree in EVE to play it. So it's about making the game more accessible, easier to play, really make 10 years of content, which we've actually already created in the game, accessible to players. So we're doing that. And that'll be, there'll be good content for brand new players who come into the game saying, wow, this is a great science fiction world. There are thousands of different solar systems, there are hundreds of thousands of moons and thousands of planets. What's there? And often people go, oh, it seems to be very empty. So we're going to really deliver on that promise we're going to make to new players coming in, whilst also making sure there's plenty of content for our older players.
One of the things that I noticed, if you don't know what you're doing in EVE, if you're just starting out, you have no idea what's going on. You might spend weeks not seeing any of the cool stuff. Are you going to communicate the cool stuff better to players that they know where to go or how to find it?
And that's a key part of what we're working on right now. As we go forward to FanFest, which we've got next month, we'll be doing a lot more reveals of the exact nature of how we're actually going to present all of the things that you can do in EVE. One of the questions we're kind of asking internally is, how do we answer when players say, what do I do next? Often, like you say, it's very difficult to know what to do next in EVE. We've kind of set that question as a test to ourselves of if we can answer that easily, there is so much in our game after 10 years that players will just naturally want to play it. But we have to show them what's actually available.
Because I find that difficult to communicate to people when actually they were looking over my shoulder, what are you doing? And I was saying, I'm in a corporation, we're camping, this is awesome, but they look at the screen, they see stars and a couple of graphs.
Yeah, exactly. And we have things like our Alliance tournament, which we stream online, and we have to make our own, we have to make another UI to really communicate the information to people who aren't actively playing the game. And I think that's one of the things that we have to learn from, which is how do we really effectively communicate information rather than data to people.
That's awesome. So you're talking about new ships, new ship balancing. These new ships, can you tell us something more about those?
Yeah, so they're going to be Navy and faction variants of some of the existing ships that we've got in the game. But we're also looking at, around exploration, what can we do in terms of new ships for that. So, we're still working on some of those details, we're still in development. But, over the last year, we've really kind of gone back to the core of what EVE is. And when you think about it, it's about spaceships. And so we've seen with all of our expansions, whenever we introduce new ships, our players gravitate towards them. They really want to play them, they want to get in them, they want to try them out, they want to see how they can actually use them. So we're always looking now to find good opportunities to add ships. But we've got hundreds of them in the game now, and one of the great challenges of having a 10-year-old game is we've got to make sure that the new things that we bring in don't destabilize what we already have. So it's a difficult challenge, but so far we've been rising to it. For instance, one of the other things we're looking at right now is how do we change the resource balance across the world? really, if you look at it, the resources have remained the same in EVE for 10 years now. We've balanced most of our ships in that time. They've changed in subtle ways, but the resource landscape has stayed the same. So we're looking at, okay, how can we make that more exciting? How can we make that more interesting? How can we actually sort of, I would almost say the resource balance in EVE is too balanced. Everybody knows where everything is, so it's kind of like flat. We want to throw a couple of stones into that flat pond and have some ripples go out, really just to create more content for our players.
Yeah, because as you said before, it's not about equilibrium, it's about people blowing each other up.
Yeah, it's about people blowing each other up and people helping each other not get blown up. And those experiences are really what people find very powerful in EVE. When you actually go through and you achieve your goals, and they're goals that you set yourself in EVE. You know, none of this is scripted. It's all about what do you want to do in this amazing science fiction world. Well, if you do that with friends, if you do that as a group effort, it's so much more meaningful. You get this real sense of achievement, and that may be building something or it may be destroying something. And tackling those problems with another group of people and sharing those experiences is what makes EVE an incredibly meaningful proposition to people who've been playing it for 10 years.
Are there any Dust-specific additions in this new expansion?
So we're always having to make sure as we link the two games of EVE and Dust that we're taking it in very steady steps. Right now, Dust is still in open beta, but it's on Tranquility. It's in the same universe as EVE Online. With the summer expansion, there'll be a few bits and pieces in there, but I'm not going to go into them right now. But we're always looking at easy ways that we can continue to integrate the games, because just like I was saying earlier, there are more people in our universe now because we have all the people playing Dust. So these guys behind us in the booth, they're all playing Dust. They're all in the world of all the EVE pilots. That makes it just a much more meaningful place. So the more opportunities we give for those links, those touch points to happen, it just makes everything just so much better.
One more thing about Dust. Is it working out as you anticipated, or are you already seeing more emergent stuff happening while the beta rolls on?
I think we're seeing it go really well in terms of being a first-person shooter. I mean, it is it's a free-to-play game on the PlayStation 3. We want it to be a AAA FPS, and it is, and it's really delivering on that. Some of the emergent things which are happening are quite interesting. We because it's by its nature, it is a smaller scope. It's a much more sort of focused experience as a shooter. You don't have quite the breadth as you do in EVE. But we're already seeing, a lot of corporations being created joint between the two games. We're seeing, people now asking us for more tools within Dust to start creating some of these stories. So, we're looking at opening up the economies, merging those more. We're looking at, okay, what happens if we start allowing money to move between the two games, and what's the impact of that? So we've started very small and very tight on things that we know, shouldn't destabilize either game. But we're in the process now of working out how do we start opening up those ties to make it, a genuine part of the sandbox.
Do the EVE, the traditional EVE players, are they welcoming to their new console Soldier Brothers, or is there still a little standoffishness between them?
I think with our entire EVE population, it depends who you speak to. There are people who, even before Dust was even in closed beta, had created corporations in EVE specifically to have Dust players in their alliances. There are others who almost make a point of having nothing to do with Dust, going out of their way to just disrupt things for Dust players.
I don't want any console gamers in my PC universe.
Exactly, but I think what people are finding actually is, again, more people makes a better game, and yeah, you get all attitudes, all opinions in EVE.
Well, that is very much EVE. I have to touch, I know you're probably tired of this, but walking in stations, is it still something, are you really putting this on the back burner now? Or are you still developing the promise of the avatar walking in the station, having a meaningful experience there as well?
So we're not actively developing it right now. On EVE we have all of our energies focused on our core spaceship game, and I think that's something which we heard very loud and clear from our community through end of 2011 and through 2012. And that focus has done good things for us. I mean, Retribution, which came out in December, was our most successful expansion to date. I mean, it was hands down, the focus that we had on that was just right. It's still something that I think will be incredibly valuable in the EVE universe, is to have that is to really have that and those avatars, that manifestation of yourself. But it's not something that right now I can commit to without taking away from the spaceship game. But it's something which we look at. We have a lot of good ideas for it. We've been, looking at what's the best way to develop that without having to take all of our engineers off it, because and that's a tricky question. And right now we've got, Dust coming out. We're concentrating on Eve. That's enough for our focus to be on. But do I see a future for it? Absolutely. I mean, it is a natural extension of it. It's just finding the best and most appropriate way to do it.
Because I shared your dream when I saw it, but I can also understand that it is a huge undertaking, especially if you have 2 games concurrently in development.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've got a big studio in Shanghai developing Dust. We've got a big studio in Reykjavik developing Eve. One of the problems we had through 2011 was we were trying to do too much, and so what we've done is we've very much focused it down to concentrating on those core parts of our games, which are very very good for us and very good for our players. But it is something that I really want to make sure happens sometime in the future.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Really nice talking to you.